Big cat is a linguistic trick, not a biological fact. My mission: catalog every true big cat in the archive. First entries: the Puma and the Cheetah. Classification error. Rejected. So size isn't the rule? The real boundary is evolutionary. The subfamily Pantherinae split from all other feline lineages more than 10 million years ago. Those muscle-bound imposters? They belong to felinae, closer to your house cat than to a tiger. Let's catalog the real big cats. This is Lore Factory, where creatures become legends. Meet the heaviest living cat on Earth, the Continental tiger. If you grew up learning about Bengal, Siberian, or Caspian tigers, you might want to sit down. In 2017, scientists essentially threw out a century of textbooks. Whole genome sequencing revealed that all mainland tigers suffered such a massive population crash during the late Pleistocene that they have virtually zero genetic diversity left. Consequently, science collapsed them all into a single subspecies. That's right, the massive snowy Siberian and the tropical Bengal are the exact same cat, just wearing different outfits. They boast a specialized larynx that lets them project infrasonic roars up to 8 kilometers away. But here's the most brilliant twist. Despite lounging in humid Indian jungles, the tiger's closest living relative is actually the cold-adapted snow leopard, having split from a common ancestor roughly 3 million years ago. Confined entirely to the dense rainforests of Sumatra, the critically endangered Sunda Island tiger is the smallest tiger phenotype on Earth. Adult males weigh roughly 110 kilograms, a brilliant ecological adaptation for stealthy navigation through the thick, closed canopy jungles of Indonesia. Historically, this lineage also lived on Bali and Java before those populations were tragically wiped out. In 2017, science formally grouped the surviving and extinct Indonesian tigers into this single subspecies. Evolutionary biologists hypothesize that their deep genetic split from mainland tigers is directly tied to the catastrophic Toba supereruption roughly 74,000 years ago, and the shifting sea levels that drowned the land bridges. Thanks to that ancient bottleneck, science now recognizes only 2 true tiger subspecies in the entire world. The southern and eastern African lion completely dominates the savanna, largely thanks to their highly complex social prides. The males are colossal, tipping the scales at up to 225 kilograms, and boast those legendary manes. For decades, naturalists obsessed over mane color and density, trying to invent new subspecies based on hairdos. Modern genetics, however, proved that a mane is entirely dictated by environmental temperature and age, not distinct DNA. The real hunters of the pride are the sleeker, lighter females, routinely taking down prey weighing over 190 kilograms. When a lion roars, it's not using vocal cords like we do. Instead, its larynx contains a uniquely flat, square vocal fold pad that vibrates frantically like a brass instrument's mouthpiece, turning lung pressure into absolute acoustic violence. Once dominating a massive stretch from the Mediterranean to India, the Asiatic lion is now marooned entirely in India's Gir forest. Following a catastrophic hunting bottleneck in the 1910s that reduced them to fewer than 24 individuals, intensive state protection has engineered a fragile recovery, with the 2025 census estimating 891 cats. But survival comes at a steep genetic price. The entire population suffers from profoundly low genetic diversity, showing near-zero mitochondrial DNA variation. Visually, you can spot an Asiatic lion by the distinctive fold of loose skin running along its belly, and the males sport sparser manes that explicitly leave their ears visible. Counterintuitively, their genome shows they are much more closely related to lions in distant West Africa than to the geographically closer lions of Eastern Africa. Moving to the neotropics, we find the jaguar, the third largest cat globally, and an absolute powerhouse. Back in the Pleistocene, they shared the landscape with a gigantic sister lineage, the American lion, before the Ice Age wiped it out. What the modern jaguar lacks in prehistoric size, it makes up for in pure structural engineering. Their skulls have severely enlarged carnassial teeth and robust arches that generate over 1,000 newtons of bite force. While a tiger usually goes for a suffocating throat bite, the jaguar prefers a catastrophic canine shear straight through the temporal bones of the skull, piercing the brain for an instant kill. They can effortlessly crunch through freshwater turtle shells and crocodile armor. So, if you're a reptile in the Amazon, a jaguar is essentially an armor-piercing round with a rosette coat. Diverging from other pantherines roughly 4.35 million years ago, the African leopard is a masterclass in adaptability. They range from arid deserts to dense riverine forests, relying on an absurd strength-to-weight ratio. A leopard only weighs around 30 to 65 kilograms, yet it can haul a carcass 3 times its own mass vertically into the tree canopy just to keep its dinner away from thieving hyenas and lions. Oh, and it's time to retire the myth of the black panther as a separate creature. It's not a distinct species. It is simply a leopard expressing a recessive genetic mutation that overproduces dark pigment. If you catch one standing in direct sunlight, you can still perfectly see their underlying rosette patterns hiding beneath the black coat. The Amur leopard holds the grim title of the world's most critically endangered big cat subspecies. Endemic to the freezing Russian Far East, this leopard has completely weaponized its coat to thrive in the subarctic, growing dense, pale fur up to 7.5 centimeters long in winter. It's an astonishing feat of rapid climatic adaptation for a lineage born in the searing African heat. Dropping to under 30 individuals in 2007, recent camera trap censuses estimate a fragile recovery of roughly 118 to 130 adults. Yet, they remain on a razor's edge. Anthropogenic fires are systematically burning away their coniferous forests into uninhabitable open grasslands. Compounding the danger, these leopards exhibit extreme territorial fidelity, obstinately relying on the exact same trails across 30,000 hectares, making them highly vulnerable to local habitat destruction. High in the brutal alpine zones of Central Asia, surviving at 4,500 meters, is the snow leopard. Genomic data confirms they are a true big cat in the Panthera genus, acting as the basal sister lineage to the tiger. To survive minus 40-degree winters, they are kitted out with intense morphological hacks. Their domed skull houses enlarged nasal cavities to pre-warm freezing air, and their meter-long tail doubles as a thermal blanket while they sleep. They even have oversized, fur-covered foot pads that function as natural snowshoes. But here is the bizarre catch. Despite being a true pantherine, the snow leopard cannot roar. Their vocal folds measure a mere 9 millimeters, offering zero resistance to airflow. Instead, this apex mountain predator is restricted to friendly, high-pitched chuffing noises. Prepare to look at evolution repeating itself. The mainland clouded leopard is the earliest diverging living cat in the big cat subfamily, splitting off between 4.47 and 9.32 million years ago. They are arboreal gymnasts. Highly flexible ankle joints permit them to run headfirst down vertical tree trunks and hang suspended purely by their hind claws. Because their hyoid bone is fully ossified, they can purr but cannot roar. The truly wild feature, however, is inside their mouths. Relative to their skull size, clouded leopards possess the longest upper canine teeth of any living feline, stretching up to 4.5 centimeters. This grants them a staggering 90-degree jaw gape, serving as a brilliant, active biological mimicry of the extinct saber-toothed cats. The Sunda clouded leopard is the island-endemic sister species, restricted to Borneo and Sumatra. Though documented in 1823, it was wrongly dismissed as a mere mainland subspecies for 183 years until molecular DNA set the record straight in 2006. Visually, their cloud markings are smaller and uniquely filled with distinct black spots. Morphometrics indicate this cat has evolved even further down the path of convergent saber-tooth evolution, effectively acting as an island dwarfism version of prehistoric macro-predators. The exact timeline of their evolutionary split remains fiercely debated among geneticists today. Some earlier studies estimate a Pleistocene split roughly 1 million years ago, while advanced 2022 whole genome assemblies argue for a divergence at 5.1 million years ago, when the Sunda Islands first became geologically isolated. Here is our first massive imposter, the puma, also known as the cougar or mountain lion. With the largest terrestrial range of any wild mammal in the Western Hemisphere, they stretch continuously from the freezing Canadian Yukon down to the Andes. But remember our rule? Despite their size, pumas are definitively small cats belonging to the Felinae subfamily. Because they have a fully ossified hyoid bone instead of an elastic ligament, they are physically incapable of roaring. They do, however, hold the title for the largest cat capable of continuous purring. Taxonomists used to fracture North American pumas into 15 different subspecies, but genomic analyses in 2000 collapsed them all into one. They are just highly adaptable hikers in a plain, unspotted coat. Another member of the small cat family, the African cheetah, is a spectacular evolutionary compromise, trading brute strength for pure, unadulterated velocity. Everything about their anatomy is geared for the sprint. They have an elongated, highly flexible spine to maximize stride length and blunted claws lacking skin sheaths that act identically to the spikes on a runner's shoe. Their upper canine roots are even reduced to make room for massive nasal apertures, vacuuming in oxygen during a 112 km/h pursuit. The global population has utterly collapsed to an estimated 6,517 mature individuals. And if you've ever heard of the legendary king cheetah with its blotchy, striped coat, it isn't a royal bloodline or a new species. Modern genetics proved it's just a standard cheetah with a single locus genetic mutation. Far from the African savanna, the critically endangered Asiatic cheetah clings to survival in the harsh, rocky deserts of central Iran. Genetically separating from African cheetahs up to 67,000 years ago, this distinct lineage evolved a noticeably thicker, longer winter coat to survive temperature swings from 40 degrees Celsius in summer to well below freezing in winter. Their demographic reality is an unfolding crisis, with census data producing incredibly volatile, fluid estimates. While exhaustive surveys recently suggested fewer than 30 adults remained, a 2026 monitoring surge recorded 21 adults and 6 cubs. However, optimism is heavily tempered by the brutal environment, as monitoring shows only 47.3% of these cubs survive their first year amidst extreme prey depletion and habitat fragmentation. Our final cat is the Florida panther, the very last breeding population of pumas east of the Mississippi River. By the early 1990s, relentless human expansion pushed them to the absolute brink. With fewer than 30 individuals marooned in the swamps, a catastrophic genetic bottleneck took hold. The severe inbreeding depression physically manifested in the cats through fatal heart defects and famously kinked tails. To avert extinction, wildlife managers executed a highly controversial genetic rescue in 1995, importing 8 female pumas from Texas. Critics fiercely warned this would swamp and erase the unique Florida panther lineage. Yet, whole genome sequencing confirms the gamble worked flawlessly. The Texas DNA masked the lethal mutations, kitten survival tripled, and the unique ancestral Florida genome remained completely dominant. So the next time someone points to a puma and calls it a big cat, you can confidently correct their phylogeny. The big cat family is an exclusive, roaring club of pantherines, heavily shaped by ancient bottlenecks, shifting land bridges, and bizarre convergent evolution. From the saber-toothed mimicry of the clouded leopard to the sheer genetic resilience of the Florida panther, these predators are far more complex than their museum labels suggest. Which evolutionary adaptation surprised you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, Make sure to hit subscribe and click the video on screen to keep exploring the lore factory. Every creature has a story. We uncover what made it legend.